All right, all right. Hi, everyone. This is my fifth episode of Filipino Hustle Fridays. I'm super excited for my next guest, Allyn Reid. Before I go into asking her questions about her story and journey, I just wanted to mention briefly and touch on some of the highlights about her, uh, some of the key things about her story. And she is the first Filipina to pretty much climb Mount Kilimanjaro in 2010. She also is a producer and entrepreneur. One of the things a notable production she was involved with was making a movie about the life of the Make-A-Wish founder. So the movie was called Wish Man, and I believe it was featured on multiple main channels on TV, and I believe it even had a short stint on Netflix. I'm going to ask her more about it. So she is also a entrepreneur and runs her own business. She is a coach. So I'd love to dive in right now. Thank you so much for hopping on this little humble show of mine. Sponsored by JH Creative, my business. For those of you who don't know, I own JH Creative, and it's an independent consultancy. We do all kinds of things from print and digital design, and I'm here to help any entrepreneurs start and scale their business. So, Allyn, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm really passionate about this series because I get to connect with a lot of Filipino entrepreneurs and talk about their story, because there's so many of us behind the scenes in these, behind big companies that make things happen. And we need more people on the public limelight, right? I feel like we need more platforms that really support Filipino entrepreneurs, especially in America.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your story. Like, you are from originally where now? Like,
originally the Philippines. I grew up there. I came to America when I was, I think 10. I must have been about. Yep. I landed in Southern California in Long Beach with my relatives, and we were there. I was there until, college, and then moved down to Irvine, LA, and now San Diego.
Wow, those are beautiful locations. Like, I've lived in SoCal for about 5 years now. And from before I landed in Tallahassee, that's where I lived before I moved from San Francisco. So now you're in San Diego. San Diego is doing well, right? I hear things about California and things.
We're doing great. We're holding it down over here.
Awesome. And so tell me, like, what was the experience like when you first got to America and having to adjust to American life?
I would say, okay, so it's a typical story. My mother, came here with $100 in her pocket and our balikbayan boxes. She was a single parent, and she had 3 little kids. I was the oldest of the 3. And so I remember, I think it was winter, or our version of winter. I look back now, but that was the first time I'd ever been cold in my life, and was just sort of like literally a fish out of water. I would say any Filipino coming or leaving the Philippines is the perfect description of a fish out of water.
It's true.
Yeah, we're like fish because we're surrounded by bodies of water. We eat a lot of fish, right? Like,
and it's the first thing we do notice is, like, summer is supposed to be hot, right? But it's not even like hot here. Hot in California is not hot.
No, not at all. So I definitely went through the whole rigmarole of like figuring out my accent, and I spoke English already, but like nobody understood me, and that whole concept of like, I know I'm speaking English in my mind perfectly, but the kids at school, they're great biofeedback machines. They're like, we don't understand you.
And so 10, that's elementary school, right?
Yes, it was 5th grade, I think.
Yeah, like around 5th or 6th. And So did you adjust okay? Like, were there Filipinos already in your community? Oh, you were one of the few then.
Yes. I think I was the only Filipino person that I saw.
Wow.
The other ones that looked Filipino were not, they were Cambodian.
We all
Or,
look very similar too.
yeah, or Thai. You know, I was in Long Beach, so
Oh yeah, Long Beach. That's so much
and
fun.
those Cambodians lived in Long Beach. So we were often, I was mistaken always for a Cambodian kid.
Yeah. I grew up in Daly City, so I was surrounded by a lot of Filipinos. And
Okay.
so I never like knew what it's like to be having to adjust culturally like that. But I saw how my cousins had to adjust moving from the Philippines still, even though it's all Filipinos, you know.
The one place where I found Filipino people were my aunt that we lived with, my aunt and uncle. We lived in their house, like in the bedroom of their house. And they go to church, like, I don't know, 20 minutes away. And they were like in a choir, because, you know, we like to sing. So they were in this choir, and they were all Filipinos. Filipino titas and titos all singing.
Oh, that's great.
That was the extent of like the Filipino. They had children, my cousins, but they were born here, and they were older, like they were already in high school and college. So it was like basically moving in with strangers. Like I didn't understand anything happening. It was totally, you know, figuring it out myself. You know.
Then with high school, and it was high school for you in Long Beach or was it in LA? Like, okay.
In Long Beach. That was actually where I found more Filipinos. I went to an all-girls school called St. Joseph.
Oh, wow.
We were on scholarship. You know, it wasn't a thing that my mom could afford really at the time, but they had programs, and I was eligible for that. And so there was a group of girls. There was about maybe 20 of us or 25 of us. They were all Filipinos. A lot of them were born here. So I was sort of this, like, I was categorized as the fob. There were a few of us.
Oh, no.
Fobs, you know, which is like the distinction of the other girls who were born here. And you can tell, I mean, their parents were quite established. They were doctors, and like, we just didn't have the same angst and internal anxiety and frustrations that they did. They were able to focus on school. They were able to focus on, you know, their mission. Therefore, whereas I often struggle understanding social interaction around me. I had my own angst about like, you're not being Filipino enough, and at home, and you know, at school, I'm not American enough. And I'm like, oh my God, what? It's like, constant juggling going on. So
no, that's so. I mean, it's and as I interview more Filipino entrepreneurs, I feel like I'm hitting like something deep down to that I went through. Even though I grew up here, obviously I grew up in America. I still went through very similar struggles. My parents were still trying to figure out life and grow their business too. So I saw the transition from being very poor in America, and then they grew their business and got to success. And so I got a perspective of a little bit of both. And my parents grew up really, really poor in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then so I totally very similar. My dad didn't understand me. I, you know, had the American mindset already. He's like, where are you getting these concepts from?
The mindset is very different. Like my friends all lived in houses, you know, already, like their parents owned a house. Well, we were living in one bedroom of a house.
Wow.
So it was like, and there's just a lot of, you know, courtesies that are involved with that is different than when you're living in your own house.
Yeah.
So I wasn't until I was like 17 or 18 that my mom could afford her own home, you know, and that was great to watch, to see her find something she wanted, have it built from scratch, going every day, you know, okay, they put in the wall, they put in the floor, they put in the paint, you know. So it was a good exercise in that sense, but definitely knowing that I just lived in this little room, like I couldn't invite anybody over, you know, like my mom was embarrassed. So I was like, maybe I should be embarrassed. I don't know. You're a kid. You're like, whatever. I don't.
Oh, really?
Like, you know, there were things like that where I couldn't really, and she didn't want me going to people's homes because I'd probably come back with like, well, they get to live in a house. Like, why aren't we living in a house? Why are we in a tiny little room sleeping on the floor with everybody else? There's like 6 of us, my aunt, my grandma.
Yeah. We fit several relatives we were the house. We landed in my aunt's house first, and then we eventually got our house, and we were the house that a lot of relatives came through. Like, yeah, cousins and everything. So yeah, we fit 13 in a small house. But I mean, the thing is, like, I saw a recent study that apparently a lot of successful entrepreneurs are immigrants. Like there's something about it. There's a drive, and so even for you, like, okay, you saw your mom go through what she went through, and then you were able to get to success younger, obviously. So, I mean, you were featured on Forbes. I didn't even mention that part. Forbes Inc. Entrepreneur. That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about like your college experience too. Like, what got you to where you wanted to get to? And
college was very difficult because we couldn't. At this point, actually, I was having problems with my parents. We weren't getting along at all, and there was a cutoff period that I didn't speak to them for a few years. And so it was a very isolated time in my life. I think I was like suicidal at one point, actually. No, I know I was. I remember I was. And so I wasn't doing well in school because I was working so much. I'd work like 2, 3 jobs and try to take like 4 or 5 classes. I went to school at University of California, Irvine, UCI.
Yeah.
Just tough school. It was hard to get into. And
it's a great school.
It was hard. It was tough. And I didn't make many friends. I probably had 1 or 2 friends. Later on, when I graduated, there were, Facebook kind of came about, and one of my dorm mates said, we always wanted to get to know you, but like, you're always gone. We would always just see you leaving. Like, you never hung out. And I was like, I was working. Like, I don't, you
had no time to socialize.
I didn't.
Yeah.
It was very lonely time. A lot of my classmates from high school did end up going to college at UC Irvine, USC, UCLA. So there was room to stay in touch. But like I'd go to their dorms and they're chilling on the floor, hanging out, telling stories, and I'm like getting anxiety from all the work I had to do. It was like my one free window to study, I was like, I can't do this. I gotta go. I'm panicking sitting here doing nothing. And so I didn't take part in that. So it was difficult. College was extremely difficult. And so I, of course, I just got a job right away after college. Both the jobs I was working at, one was for Johnson & Johnson and one was for an escrow company. Both offered me full-time jobs at graduation when I graduated. And I said yes to both. I didn't even know how I would do both, but but I did get to build those 2 people. They were both entrepreneurs, and I helped them build their business when I was a junior and senior. I was with them for years. And so one of them, we started in her like basement thing, like little tiny bedroom in Newport Beach. It was just me and her. And then it grew to like 20 people. The other one was running a sales force for Johnson & Johnson. And I helped grow that, transition that out into his own firm. So I got to see how it's done. And then I also worked for the university at the Department of Economics, putting together their symposiums, their papers, being an assistant. Yeah.
See,
busybody.
It's the work ethic. I feel like we probably have some of the best work ethic ingrained in us. I don't know how to explain it, but even people who are friends of mine who are, they say, I don't know about it, but Filipinos are just some of the best working, they have the best, they're just some of the best people to work with, so you might have some insight to that.
I used to think of that as a compliment, and now I'm like suspicious. I've become a mother, and how I channel my energy is very different now than before I had my own family. I'm very mindful about, mental health of my child, that person I bring into the world, and that he's adjusted and he knows who he is. I didn't know who I was. That was not something that was ingrained in me. It was more that I existed for the world, for the community, for the family. And the concept of like knowing who you are was something I had to cultivate and stumble upon on my own, as an adult, as an entrepreneur, sitting here going, what makes all this stuff happen? Obviously it's me, but what? How? What about me? And until I really got to zero that in, things are great, but I knew it could be greater. Like I knew it could be much more expansive than what it was. So yeah, now I look at it with suspicion because there's also quite a lot of like users in the world who would be happy to take your energy all day long for their own benefit.
I love that. I mean, I love that you're bringing that up because, I mean, does Woomanity and everything that you do, does it help people kind of clarify on
Yes,
that? Like
absolutely.
and I'm glad you're bringing this up because we're so kind people. Like we give so much.
Yep.
And we tend to not know how to say no
Yeah.
for our sake and for our loved ones around us. And I speak from personal experience. I am a yes person, and I'm getting better at saying no to a lot of things and realizing my capacity. But Woomanity, like maybe we can dive into that and find, tell me a little bit more. I know it might be jumping ahead, but I'm just curious. Is that what your program is like, and you take people through that journey?
It is. It's it's energy management program for smart people. It does involve healing and energy work. Absolutely. One of the things that spurred it on was that I was at a place in my life, I'm having articles written and I'm going, I don't know who I am. Like they say I'm all this stuff, but I don't feel nothing inside, like what are they talking about? And so I was having flashes of myself when I was 20 and I was like suicidal. I'm like, no, I'm not suicidal, but I'm having the same feeling of lostness. I'm very busy, but I feel lost. And I pinpointed it down to when I was growing up in the Philippines, like healing and medicine and religion are all intertwined and integrated. Like a priest would send you to a healer and a healer would send you to the doctor and the doctor would send you to the healer, and this is something I experienced. My brother was born with a brain tumor. So, so of course we got to experience the referral system of science and religion and energy work. And my grandma was part of this group of women who were healers, and you have to climb mountain and like ask the locals where they're at, if they're like in different locations, if they liked you, they'd tell you where they were. If they didn't, you'd be lost. And when I came here, all of that kind of concept of magic and seeing that was gone. It was just gone. You come here and you survive, and understanding that there's a oneness and an energy that runs between all of us and everything around us, that was gone. But it was something I lived in. And naturally, when you go to the Philippines, you kind of feel it there. And so that, I think, led me to too much of a clinical, ego-driven existence. Not my own and others, serving other people's egos, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I really had to reclaim this part of my identity and realize, there were a lot of things I was good at. And one of the things I was good at was knowing when people would hire me for consulting for their business, I would know what they needed to do. And you know what it was? I can hear. Like I could see and hear, not from the words coming out of their mouth, what they needed to do. It was the soul of the business or the person's soul speaking to me, and I would just spit it out. Like I was just like the delivery system,
Is that kind of like EQ? I mean, something.
No, it's like clairaudience.
Okay.
It's like a psychic ability.
Oh.
I actually don't score that well on the EQ.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the whole EQ thing is I'm starting to see more on that. That's why I'm bringing it up. Like, is that kind of like that? But yeah, no, I mean, so you're able to pick up on things that people aren't even able to.
I can hear it clearly. And I adamantly would never acknowledge that. I knew I had these talents. I was born with them. You know, but I was adamant, like, to not use them. But I was adamantly denying I had them because I wanted to live a normal life. I wanted to make it, you know. I didn't want to put a sign on a shop and be like psychic, you know, and blinking eyes. It's weird. So, but that is what the magic sauce was, the X factor for me. And when I was getting a divorce and exiting all of that life, I clearly heard this voice say, "You're either going to do this or we're going to take you out." And I looked around and I was like, "Who said that?" You know, I was on the floor of my closet crying, you know. And I was like, who's the we and take me out? Like, what? And this is where it slowly started to unfold, and it was to help people with their own specific talents. And that's how this came about, this work. So yes, I take somebody who don't even think they have any talent to go and, well, turns out you're clairsentient or clairvoyant or, you know, whatever it is.
That's really cool. Yeah, and as I get more into entrepreneurship too and study successful entrepreneurs, it seems like everyone needs some kind of direction and clarity, like whatever level of success you've had. And people do get lost at different times in their life. So and looking at your bio and everything that's happened. So what inspired you to climb Mount Everest? Because
Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, Kilimanjaro.
My son's father was going with his best friend. I didn't know what Kilimanjaro was until like that year, planning for that trip. And they'd asked me to join him. I was like, okay, I don't even know what that means, but okay, I didn't even work out, nothing.
Are you serious?
No, I didn't know. I mean, I got there and everyone's telling their stories, you know, our host, our Sherpas, our expedition host picks us up and we're all in a van, right, waiting for each other's flights, and everyone's sharing their stories. They're like, "Oh, well, we flew to Washington and climbed Whitney, and oh yeah, we went into downtown LA and climbed 70 floors stairs." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die! I didn't do anything."
No prep.
No, I'm like, I should have taken a walk or something. We did all that just to complete this.
And you made it.
I made it, but I did have to be like helped down because I kept falling on the decline. Up was fine, down was a struggle for me, which is like the story of my life, right? I'm totally fine climbing anything and reaching for anything. Knock me down or just the decline. I'm like, no, I'm hanging on.
That is so, that's awesome. I pictured you like being in preparation mode, like you're totally prepared for several months or something. And
honestly, that was dumb luck.
And then you found out later you were probably the first Filipino to.
Yeah.
Because most Filipinos would be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, in the truck, when we got to the bottom, we had a greeting party. They gave us food. We danced and sang, and that's when you start getting registered. You know, the names of, there's like a register at the foot of the mountain. And it occurred to me, I was like, oh, cool, let me look up other Filipinos. And we're going through it, and I'm like, where are the other Filipinos? You know?
I love it. So it's not like you were ambitious to be like that first person to climb.
Yeah, people come here all the time, you know, like this is a thing. It's on people's bucket list, you know.
That's awesome.
There is a man though who had done it already.
Yeah.
Okay. In the 70s.
I'm gonna have to. He's in his 70s now?
No, I think it was in the 70s.
Oh, it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I had to laugh. I was like, I know this is really racist, but it's kind of like telling of the culture, because what Filipino is gonna come here for vacation? They're not
No,
gonna go
I know,
to
right?
Africa of all things.
It's more stereotypical. Yeah, I have climbed accidentally some mountains too with friends, like not realizing how long of a hike it was. I was like, yeah, if you guys told me all the details, I wouldn't have come.
No, no. Before we got there, there was like a meeting of all of us hikers, and like our guide is like, and did this and did that, and I was like, I'm walking off. I can't listen to all of this. I'm pretty sure I won't go on if I keep listening. So I didn't even listen to that. I just went back to my room and just like hung out while
Good for
everybody was
you.
sitting there mapping out the route and like strategy on a day-to-day level. It's like, can't do it.
So then, okay, at what point did you produce the Wishman movie?
That was a concept. Okay, so Colt was just born, so that was he's 9, turning 10 this year. It's 10 years ago.
Okay.
We got the rights to his story. I had a publishing company at the time, and also I produced a event, a conference for entrepreneurs and like-minded people called Secret Knock. And so we came across this gentleman who created Make-A-Wish. He was a retired cop, and I thought, gosh, your story's amazing. Can we have the rights to it? I published a book, and then the movie idea came not long after that. But the movie didn't start, like, even though we agreed when Colt was a baby. He's like my marker. It was a time I wasn't sleeping and all that.
Yeah.
But it didn't get going for another 6 years.
Okay.
Like we went through the rigmarole of like courting producers, casting.
Oh man.
So much. So we really had to crack the thing. Honestly.
And I saw the documentary on Netflix about like the story behind the famous movies that almost never happened. I think it was something about like the movies that we grew up with kind of thing. And so I kind of have an idea that it does take a lot of time to get it from book to movie. Like you have to find the right people to support and rally around your idea, right? So like 6 years to me sounds like a typical turnaround.
Yeah, it finally got started. I think we filmed in 2016 or 17.
Cool.
And it was like a year like to go through editing and finalizing it. We ended up in Cannes and Toronto, festivals, and movie theaters. And then after all of those were done, then it went into Netflix for a few years.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it's still in it right now. I think it's on Amazon right now, Amazon Prime.
I'm about to watch that. Yeah. That's awesome. And so you were the main producer behind it.
There were several of us. I produced it along with Colt's father, my son's father. And then we have a whole set of associate producers, Theo, our director and script writer. He's been with us since the beginning. We're very fortunate. So, yeah. And
then with Woomanity, like when did you start it, and when did you get an idea like this is what I really want to do?
Well, first of all, I didn't want to do it. It was more that threat over you're going to do this, we're taking you out kept coming to me. There was little whispers, and my dreams. I'm like, fine. My negotiation with God and the universe is okay. Fine, I'm gonna take a shot at this, but I don't want to be poor. I don't want to live like a hippie. I don't want to smell like patchouli every day. Don't want to, I like nice things. I like to be in a house. I like driving my Escalade. I like.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
I don't want to do this. That you look at this kind of stuff, that crowd, and you're like, yeah, that's why we're not doing that.
Well, would you say though, because you have the backing of your experience in corporate America? I mean, you have all of that you accomplished. Would you say that kind of helped you as well? Because I totally get the idea.
I would say the survival mechanism was a hindrance at this point. It was really a stretch in growth to go into energy work. um, the backing of the corporate life and entrepreneur life allows me to translate and teach people how you actually use energy in your everyday life and in your work, beyond just healings, which is just like kind of becomes like a dog and pony show after a while. People are just like, oh, let me see you do something, let me see you heal this, like it's very unfulfilling actually. And in the thick of it at the time, I felt that I was starting to become like a plumber.
Mm.
I'd see clients with all kinds of ailments. I had two at one point at the same time, terminally ill cancer patients, and they're both still alive. But
Wow.
but there's a lot of having to mine and archive and excavate some of these things we've lived through and the energy of that collecting in our bodies that cause disease
Mm.
or that cause one to feel stuck. Especially if you're going after something, there is a point where you reach a plateau because you need to work some stuff out. And when you work some of that stuff out, you then open it up to be part of your potential, your pool of potential, and then you go to your next thing. And so, did I want to do this? No. How did it come to me? It actually came to me in my dream. I wanted, I didn't want to be like soulinheaven.com. I was like, I'm here for a specific avenue in energy work and healing. And that is not to be just an energy healer. I remember telling one of my mentors at the time, I'm never going to be just like this full-on healer psychic person. I'm just not. I'm not wired that way. I love work. I love entrepreneurship. I love helping people create the thing they want. I love helping people give voice to their message, hence books and publishing, right? So I could never just be like this healer living in a cave meditating. I can't do it. And so then I thought, well, I really need a brand that shows the convergence of woo-woo and humanity. That's what Woomanity is. It's woo and humanity.
I love that.
Because we're all woo, all of us. A lot of people listening, a lot of Filipinos are go-getters. I get it. I have been there. I used to get up at 4 a.m. and work out, okay, and then go through my day and then still have my side hustle, run a family, run a community. I get it. But yet when shit hits the fan, what do? You start praying. You start start seeking out some of these titas and titos. Like, who do you know that can do this? I have no more solutions. Science can't fix it. Like, who do you know? What should I do? So it's for me, everybody's woo. We're just severely untrained or unaware about the extent of it.
Yeah, for someone who's not familiar with that, can you explain a little bit about woo?
Sure. Woo is a satire. Sarcasm. It's a sarcastic thing. People would be like, oh, this person is woo. You should try them. They like crystals. I'm like, okay. Crystals, what? So woo is a lifestyle. When it comes down to it, all our talents come down to, honestly, is about, that's in Berlin. It's about living from your soul, acknowledging that we are a soul first, even we got to these bodies. And this soul is what is supposed to be the command center of our minds and hearts and our bodies. But right now, the way modern man exists is that we mostly live our minds. Mind. I mean, mind everything, mental health on the science side. On the other side, it's like all these neurotropics and, optimal potential kind of sort of languaging, because we're run by our minds. And that's absence of being able to patch into your soul. And really, truthfully, the only times I've noticed people patch into their soul is at defining moments in their lives, near deaths, when there's extreme danger. There's like that insight that says, make a right turn and you avoid an accident, and you're like, oh, I don't know how I knew that. Well, what do you think? That's your flash of woo. Like the way we live today, it's just, we get it in these little flashes, but we could actually live like that every day. We don't have to wait for avoiding death to do it. And so this is the woo. The woo is that journey taking you through a more whole picture of who you are, integrating the soul first, and then we start exploring what talents came with your soul. Is it in the hearing? Is it in the body, clairsentience? It's not like a coincidence that a lot of us are nurses and doctors, because there's clairsentience, and I suspect a lot of Filipinos are clairaudience because of our love of music and singing, and so we just don't know that we can do it. We can do other things beyond singing and listening to music. Besides that, it's actually very powerful things.
So you've helped people also discover what other things they can do other than what we think we can do.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's really fascinating. So there's so much I wish I could unpack with the time that we have. I know we can't, but it makes me wonder too, like if people wanted to try to explore, what it's like to go through your program besides the website, they can just find you obviously on your socials, or what does it look like? What does the process look like from beginning?
Gosh, it's an overhaul, honestly. In the beginning, we sort through some of these things you've lived through, whether the stories are good or bad, it doesn't matter. We sift through the energy that sits in your field. So it's 3 stages. First, it is done for you. I'll do a lot of the heavy lifting around clearing up the energies of it. I'm not clearing it up in the sense it's gone, because you have your memories and your lessons there, but we're freeing up your energy from just sitting there being a memory bank of the stuff that you go through. Mm-hmm. And then we switch through where it's done with you. I begin to show you steps, how to do it little by little. And then the 3rd stage is you're on your own and you come back and like, what happened in the world? How do you manage it? So you integrate it into everything you're doing, but 3 stages: done for you, done with you, and then you do it yourself.
Cool. I've heard of that concept too, but people usually apply it the opposite. So for you, it's done for you first. I mean, it makes sense that you have to go through that with you. And so have a lot of your, I guess, the people who participate in your program, what have been ideal participants? Are most of them usually like CEO level type of entrepreneurs?
Yeah. They are people who have already in some form achieved something. They have seen everything, done everything, and they're still dealing with themselves, and they're kind of tired of it, and they're wanting to go to their next thing. So it doesn't matter whether someone's religious or not. I've had super religious people. They're like amazing to work with. They catch it so fast. It's amazing.
It's nice. I mean, I know, because in our culture there is a lot of religious people. And so sometimes things get a little too spiritual that like the practical things just doesn't really happen.
I don't like for this kind of work to be isolated in the etheric or in the spiritual side. As I tell people, business is personal, and every spiritual is also must be in the 3D. And every spiritual must also become practical, and every practical must also go back into the spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's really the work on this.
Would you say that you've had like growth through word of mouth? What has helped you grow your business?
You know what? I think I was fortunate. I had built businesses. I had a conference before this.
The Secret Knot Conference.
Yeah, I already had my very, very wide resource network. So that's how I got going. I was already getting booked for consults anyway, and the rest of it had been referrals.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it's grown.
So it's been natural. It's not like you had to throw a lot of money into advertising, marketing. It's great.
I've not done any. No.
And you have a decent following on social. For those of you who catch this recording later, you should definitely check her out at Woomanity, 6,000 plus.
Yeah, that's been way down. It used to be at like 10K, and I just did not posting much over the last like 3 years.
It's okay. Sometimes social media is an energy suck, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, it also, as an energy person, that's a lot of people to like feel, right?
Yeah.
So there is that. I think, it's not a coincidence people feel chaotic after they've been in social. You're absorbing all these people's drama and energy in their lives, and you're not clearing you're not taking a shower. So those are the things that you learn how to do.
Yeah. I've finally come to the point where I'm not making it a priority. It's like kind of on the back burner.
There
I
has
did
to be spiritual hygiene, especially with social, because
I love that.
you underestimate how much energy you're actually absorbing in versus just like, it's not just a post, it's the energy of the intention of that person. It transfers to you, and then you keep scrolling, and it just keeps at you. You keep absorbing it. It's like, no
It's
wonder
really
people-
true. It is a waste of time in many ways too. It is. So, okay. So people, if they want to contact you, can go to your website, right?
Yeah, website, any of my socials. It's very easy to contact me. I do respond.
This is so awesome. And I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything that you love to add and end with?
I know everyone's very busy, and we're all geared to be busy, but your power lies in your quiet moments, and all of the things you think you have to do more, do less, and that's where you really get far. So that's the woo.
That's awesome. We need to quote her on that. Any of my team members listening right now, we need to quote her on that. Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know where it is, again, her website is at woomanity.com. Allyn Reid, thank you so much for hopping on, taking the time out of your busy schedule to just have this conversation. And I would love to continue to explore, even for us behind the scenes.
Sure, anytime.
Yeah. And for those of you who are catching this recording, please like and share. This is it will be on YouTube and Facebook. And we'll put links below in the comments so that you guys could find Allyn. And for any Filipino entrepreneurs out there, we are actually lining up several interviews several months in advance. Contact us. We want to feature more of you entrepreneurs, and especially in America, because I know you guys need more support. So I wish you all well, and I will go ahead and end.